Ooh. Yo, what's going on? Welcome back to another live edition of Real Fans Real Talk in conjunction with the Sanchez Show. I know we're starting the live off a little bit later this evening, but some good games we had to get it, and watch this afternoon. We wanted to be fully prepared for you guys when we came on the live today because we had some wars and we had a couple of games where it's just like I don't know, and we had one big upset. This might be the upset, of the season so far with this one. I guess this was probably equated with the Steelers Bucks upset a couple of weeks ago because that point favorite was so crazy. But before we do get into that, let me introduce my co-host, the one and only legend in two games, Eric Sanchez. What's going on, man?
What's really good, bro? As you mentioned, it has been an exciting day of football today. You said we wanted to come to everybody a little later, especially since the Sunday night game is kind of the highlight of the week with 2-5-2 teams. But we saw some great football, and we did see a shocking upset in the 1 o'clock game.
Yes, sir. So, first of all, shout out to Ryan. I see you already in the chat right now. What's good, man? We appreciate the love and support, and we definitely gonna get to your question a little bit later on in the program. But we got to talk about the upset of the season this week. We've been talking about this game for 2 weeks now, Eric, because we were trying to see if the Jets won last week against the Patriots, would that make any type of a difference this week against the Bills? Well, the Jets lost last week to the Patriots, and it still made a difference this week against the Bills. Talk to me about the Jets defense first and foremost before we get to the offense. And I'm gonna give the Zach Wilson. I'm gonna give him his kudos. My guy Wilson. I'm gonna give him his kudos. But we got to talk about this defense. Number one, though, Sauce Gardner. He definitely bringing the swag. He definitely bringing the Sauce back to that position. Talk to me about this Jets defense, man.
I love this Jets defense. I absolutely love it. I've talked about it all year. That to me, this is the foundation of what could become a special run with the Jets. They still need a lot of pieces to be an upper echelon team, and I don't want to put them in that conversation yet. They're 6-3 right now, but this defense and the way they've drafted and brought in the guys they needed here. You're talking about Quinnen Williams. You're talking about C.J. Mosley as guys that were previously on the defense, but you added Sauce Gardner. You added Jermaine Johnson. You bring in LaMarcus Joyner. You bring in all these guys who now have made this into a very good defense, along with Coach Saleh, who had made a reputation for himself as a defensive coach in San Francisco. I love what the Jets are doing defensively. You talk about Sauce today. We know about the pick, his second pick of the year. We've seen all the numbers all year, how he's been shutting down receivers that he covers in his side of the field. But also his physicality. He has the pass breakup at the end of the game, but he has 7 tackles today. So he's a cornerback who's not all finesse. He's not a guy who just wants to stand outside and play the pass game. He will stick his nose in there on the run game. He will get physical with receivers at the line of scrimmage. He's completely changing the tempo, I think, of this defense as well, as you mentioned, with the swag that he's bringing and the confidence that now Saleh has in we can bring pressure because we have a cornerback who can hold his own out there and make sure that we don't get beat deep down the field. And Jermaine Johnson, another guy, like I said, who they drafted last year out of Florida State, he comes in today, gets a sack in this game. Quinnen Williams was wreaking havoc on the inside. I like this Jets defense a lot. I think there's a lot of potential there. It was the shocker of the day. It's a game that we have been hyping up for about 2 weeks. But again, I love what I'm seeing from the Jets, man. And now this AFC East gets really interesting.
Absolutely, because the Dolphins, excuse me, the Dolphins held on today against a Bears team that actually looked like a football team today. Shout out to Justin Fields, but the Dolphins got the win. Now, the Jets take this first game against the Bills, which is, that's going to be huge. Later on, we talk about heading into the playoffs. The Patriots got another win today. We know what they're capable of, underneath Bill Belichick's tutelage. This defense is very competitive right now. And I'm gonna be honest with you, Eric. We could be talking about a little bit of a toss up here, just if because if the Jets can actually beat the Bills again, I know the Bills are missing some players, but we got to still give the Jets their respect because even with the players that the Bills were missing on the defensive end of the football, they are still a better team than a fully healthy Jets team. But the Jets showed something today. They showed that they had a lot of heart. They had a lot of fight. They would not give up. They took this thing basically down to the last second. Wilson, I think he's going to be a future star in this league. He was making a lot of great plays for them. They were able to get James Robinson involved in the offense today, not only running the football, but he caught a big passing touchdown that helped the Jets, late on in that game. We're gonna have to start legitimately, talking about this Jets team, as far as being now. You gotta give them legitimate playoff contender status right now.
Oh, without a doubt. And again, shout out to Ryan. We appreciate you, locking in with us. But let's not get it confused. The Bills have been missing players in their secondary and in their defense for most of the season, right? They haven't had a lot of their guys in their secondary all year. So I don't think that changes anything today. I think what was really impressive for me, and as we talked about the defense to start off, the Jets held them to 3 points in the second half. There's a Buffalo offense that was ranked number 1 overall coming into this game. Josh Allen didn't throw a touchdown, but he threw 2 interceptions. Josh Allen had 80-plus yards rushing. Normally, when you get the combination of what they're able to do passing with that rushing, it's tough to keep up with them. The Jets held them to 3 points in the second half. You mentioned James Robinson. I thought it was a masterful job of play calling late in this game. They get the ball deep in their own side of the field. I think at the 2-yard line, I believe it was. They got James going, got a certain physicality going right after Buffalo at that moment. He had some big rushes. Like you said, they were able to chew up a lot of clock and then kick the field goal to give them the lead. It was a different identity. I think in the past, this is a game that a Jets team would not have won. They would have found a way to lose it late. But this Jets team is a little different. They're kind of growing up and maturing before our eyes. And again, not to minimize just because Buffalo had guys out. This is what we've been seeing from the Jets defense all year. Because when they went to Green Bay, this is what we saw from them. You know what I'm saying? So I think we're seeing the start of something different with this Jets team. Garrett Wilson is an absolute stud. He had 8 catches today. He's been amazing for them. And I think Zach Wilson, the way he rebounded from last week, Bill Belichick kind of put the handcuffs on him. He threw in 3 interceptions. There were people questioning if he's the right quarterback for this team moving forward. He came out today and played really well and proved that he is the guy for this team.
No, absolutely. Shout out to Wilson. I got him in the trade in fantasy last week, so I was hoping he could have got me one more catch to get that 8, get to 100 yards receiving on the day. But I like this kid. I like the chemistry that they're building between him and Zach Wilson. Obviously, we know they lost Breece Hall for the season, but I like the running game. Michael Carter played very well today. He had a couple of really big runs that really helped the Jets solidify this win. And then again, James Robinson followed that right up with the solid performance, for him to just still kind of be getting acclimated to this offense. And again, that big catch that he made, that touchdown catch. If you're a Jets fan, you should be sitting pretty right now, because you looked very good against arguably the best team in the AFC, who also happens to be in your division, and now you're up 1-0 over the Bills on the season, which is going to mean a lot later on when we start really talking about playoff rankings.
Well, it's huge, as you mentioned. They get the rematch with Buffalo in 4 weeks. Next 4 games for the Jets. Right now, they're 6-3. Their next 4. Next week, they get a chance to avenge the loss to the Patriots. They do go to New England, which is going to be a marquee matchup. The whole division is over 500 right now, which is phenomenal when you think about it. With some of the other teams having quarterback issues. Buffalo's the only one that's had real stability at the quarterback position. But the Jets didn't start with Zach Wilson this year. The Patriots have had to go back and forth with Mac Jones. At one point, Miami was down to their 3rd-string quarterback. And yet somehow every team in this division is over 500. But to the point of the Jets, next week they're in New England. Then after that, they get a Bears team, as you mentioned, which the Bears have looked very good the last couple of weeks. I know the win-loss record won't show that, but another 30-point performance. And Justin Fields is starting to grow into his own right now, I think. They get the Bears after the Patriots. Then they got a tough game against Minnesota in Minnesota. And then they got to go to Buffalo. So 3 of their next 4 are on the road. But I do want to highlight this, as you mentioned. They're 1-0 against Buffalo. They're 1-0 against Miami. and the Jets are 4-0 on the road. Those are the makings of a playoff caliber team. Elite defense, being able to run the ball and winning games on the road. The Jets do all those things. I agree with you, Trip. I think the Jets are a legitimate playoff team.
Yeah. Quick question before we switch over to the next game. Can the Jets rebound from the loss they took 2 weeks ago at home to the Patriots and win this game? Because this is going to be just as important of a game as this Bills win was. This next week is going to be very important because they already lost once to New England, and you don't want to go down 0-2 against a division rival on the season when you're talking about fighting for a home field spot in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a very important game. I think, and actually, it's I think the Jets get the bye week next week. So I'm just checking it out right now because I wanted to see what the opening line was on that. Yeah, the Jets get the bye week, so it's actually in 2 weeks that they play at New England. There's no line on it, but they can go in there and win that game. I don't think the Patriots are unbeatable. However, I do think that it's going to be a tough matchup for them because Bill is going to come with the game plan. Bill has always given Zach some problems. Zach's going to have to find a way to take better care of the ball. I think it'll be a more competitive game than the first time, but I still would give the slight advantage to the Patriots just because of what Bill Belichick has been able to do to Zach Wilson in the prior meetings.
Yeah, I agree. I still have to give the edge to the Patriots just because the mind of Bill Belichick is something remarkable. So I always give him a chance in these games. I will say this though. The Jets having this bye week is actually the perfect thing for them going into that Patriots game, because now you have 2 weeks to figure out where things went wrong a week ago in that loss to the Patriots and try to change things up. Obviously, we know Robinson is really still getting acclimated to the offense, but he'll now have 2 weeks to work with the first team, get those reps up, get the playbook down. So I like the Jets' chances. Right now, I'm going to say 50-50, to be honest with you. I got to see what the Patriots do next week, and then, following up with that performance, because we still have to see – we haven't seen the consistency that we saw from Mac Jones his rookie year this season. I know part of that is due to the injuries, but I still want to see that consistent play from Mac Jones. We know playing in a Belichick system, it kind of is like a cheat code for some guys, but I still have to see it first. And again, that's an Alabama guy, so me saying this is really me giving him that harsh criticism. That's my guy, but I still want to see that level of consistency. With that being said, I want to talk about the only undefeated team left in football, the Philadelphia Eagles. Eric, is this team the real deal? I know we spoke about schedule and the schedule in the past, but they made a big move on the defensive end a couple of weeks ago, bringing over Robert Quinn from the Bears. The offense is clicking on all cylinders between A.J. Brown. It's like every day one of these, a different guy has a monster week. It might be A.J. Brown this week. It might be Jalen Hurts. It might be Miles Sanders. Everybody is taking their turns with this team. Are the Eagles the real deal? Are they the best team in the NFC? Are they the best team in football?
They're the best team in the NFC. I think clearly the best team because they've been the most consistent team. Every week we know what we're going to get from the Eagles. We're going to get explosive offense. We're going to get good defense. They're going to make the plays when they need to make them. I think the most impressive thing Thursday, it's the Texans. It's not a good team. They were expected to win, but it was the way they did it. They dominated the game. They controlled the game. There was no letdown on a short week, which is really the only opportunity I think the Texans would have had to even be competitive. But in a short week, the Eagles showed there was no distractions. They handled their business. I think they're clearly the best team in the NFC. I think it's going to be a few weeks before we even see them really be tested because they got the Commanders next week. Then they've got the Colts after that. Then they've got Green Bay. So I know we're going to get to Green Bay in a second. You're talking about 3 teams that the Eagles should beat pretty easily before they get to a little tougher part of their schedule. But for the people who say, well, look who they played, that's all you can do. All you can do is beat the teams on your schedule. You can't apologize for, hey, this is who we had. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, there's certain teams that you don't expect to be that good. No one, when they saw the schedule at the beginning of the year, thought the Packers would lose to the Giants and Jets, right? But those teams are better now, and the Packers aren't that good. So you play who's on the schedule, you handle your business, and then you see where it lies. For me, the Eagles are the best team in the NFC. Not quite overall. I still like Buffalo a little bit more than them, and I still like Kansas City more than them. But if we're taking bets on who to come out the NFC, I think it's the Eagles.
Yeah. As much as as I probably will, I won't ever say this to any of my friends that are Eagles fans. Right now, I would have to say the Eagles are the best team in the NFC at least. I still think that the 49ers are very close, but the 49ers have to get healthy. We know they're a different animal when Debo is on the field and when they're off the field. So I really want to see them start to build up that level of chemistry with everybody on the field consistently, really incorporating Christian McCaffrey with all of the things that he can do, all of the things that Debo can do. So I'm still having them at 1A, 1B, but I'm going to give Philly the edge for right now. But yeah, as far as in the league goes, even with the Bills taking this loss today, I still don't put them ahead of Buffalo. I still don't put them ahead of Kansas City. And depending on how Roquan Smith got Baltimore looking on Monday Night Football, I might have to drop them down a little bit further on the totem pole. But we're gonna wait for Monday Night Football to see how that acquisition pans out. You
I want to say
mentioned
this really quickly.
go ahead.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
I know we're gonna get off the Eagles in a second. I want to say this really fast though. I think what makes the Eagles special, and again, people want to knock the schedule, but what makes them special is their ability to beat you with the pass or the run. Because coming into the season, we didn't know what Jalen Hurts was really going to be. Now that we see how consistent he's been as a passer, they're a different team, and now there's a certain explosiveness with that offense that we weren't expecting.
Yeah, yep, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. You mentioned Green Bay. We got a question in. Shout out to the support system, man. The fans been rocking with us on these lives. I love that y'all sending in these questions, being interactive with us. Ryan want to know what's going on with with Aaron Rodgers. Ryan, I'm gonna tell you this. Personally, I don't think that there's anything wrong with Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers. I think he's still that MVP caliber quarterback he was last year. But when you add in the fact that he doesn't have any of his receivers, or any good receivers anyway, he went from having Devontae Adams, who is one of the best wide receivers in football. And I mean, last season, even still into this season, you could argue that he is the best wide receiver in football. But when you take that away from a quarterback and the levels of wide receiver skill sets that came after Devontae Adams on that Packers roster is, basically a bunch of fourth string guys. It's basically a bunch of fourth string guys, and they got a top level running back in Aaron Jones. But as far as their receivers go, their tight ends, no disrespect, but those guys, they're horrible. Like I said, they're fourth in the pecking order at best. We saw the difference a top tier wide receiver can make for quarterbacks, like a Josh Allen. We see how that goes, but we also see how it goes when you take away a top tier wide receiver from an elite quarterback. And also, with Green Bay, we know they haven't done their job at bringing in new receivers, helping out Aaron Rodgers with that offense. So they didn't have anybody who was even close to being a number 2 wide receiver, to replace Devontae Adams. So yeah, obviously, they're going to look bad. The defense wasn't great last season. It hasn't improved, and the offense is even worse. So yeah, this is the year he should be having. He's having a down year. There's nobody out there to help.
Listen, man, I'm gonna say this. I'm not giving Aaron Rodgers a pass this year. I'm sorry, I'm not. And this was several years in the making. All right. At one point, I think we all sided with Aaron Rodgers. We all felt kind of like you mentioned, Trip. You guys really haven't invested the draft capital or the free agency money to go get him the weapons. I get that, but a couple years ago, he made a big stink and wanted a little bit more control. And he got that control. Remember, he kind of restructured his deal and he had them bring in Randall Cobb. He wanted a little more control over Matt LaFleur's play calling and what they do offensively. And they did that and he won an MVP and he got praised for that. rightfully so. But then he chose to take a massive contract, which he knew could hamstring them in being able to re-sign Devontae Adams, which is ultimately what happened because Devontae Adams wanted to be paid like one of the elite receivers in the game, which he is. So now this is what you get. And we've seen other quarterbacks who don't have elite level talent still be successful. So you've got to find a way to make it work with what you have. They are 3-6. He threw 3 interceptions today, 2 of those in the red zone trip. We can't ignore the fact that he's not playing good ball either. And I don't think it gets any better for them. I think their season is done. They are not making the playoffs. They're not having a winning season this year. As you were talking, Trip, I started smiling. I don't know if you saw me in the background because I looked at these games and I want you to stop me, or anybody who's watching, you could comment it in the comment section. Stop me when you hear a game that you think the Packers could win, okay? Starting next week, they host the Dallas Cowboys. After that, they host the Titans, who play tonight. We'll learn more about the Titans tonight. Then they got the Eagles, they got the Bears, they got the Rams, they got the Dolphins, they got the Vikings. Then they end the season against the Lions. That's their last 7 games. You're probably going to say the Lion game.
What's that Bubba Sparks song? It's going to get ugly. It's going to get real ugly for Green Bay Packers.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
And that's their last 8 games of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Rodgers cannot be excluded from the criticism because he has not played well. I also think there's been a stubbornness from Matt LaFleur to want to continue to air it out, knowing, as you mentioned, we've got a lot of young, inexperienced receivers. We've got to find a way to get those guys confident. We just can't throw the ball the way we used to and then expect these guys to do it because Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs are both rookies. So you're expecting those guys to give you the production that Devontae Adams gave you. They can't just get on the field and do it that way. You got to slowly build them in. I see the comment here talking about the Giants, right? But look at the Giants. We don't have any receivers and look good. You're absolutely right, Ryan. And as Tripp and I have both said, that goes to coaching, understanding your personnel, understanding what I have, what are my strengths. Green Bay has 2 quality running backs. They should be a run-heavy offense. But instead, they still rely on Aaron Rodgers to throw the ball 30-plus times a game. And that's why you're 3-6 at this point.
Yeah. Shout out to the Giants, man. Shout out to Ryan. I like how you said that Eric, that coaching is really good. The Giants and the Giants play defense too. So that's the other thing.
I think when you look at the Giants play amazing defense, but I think when you look at the surprising teams of this year, the one thing they all have in common is how well they've been coached and understanding their personnel. Brian Daboll, what he's been able to do with that offense. You look at the Seahawks won today. Nobody thought the Seahawks were going to win 6 games, let alone be 6-3. I think Pete Carroll deserves a lot of credit for what he's doing with Geno Smith right now. He got Geno Smith looking like a Pro Bowl quarterback right now. No one saw that coming. And we talked about the Jets. You look at what Robert Saleh is doing over there. Remember he made the comment, I'm keeping receipts, and everybody laughed? Well, now he gets to take his victory lap. Show them receipts now because all the people that was laughing is now looking at the Jets like, wait a minute, the Jets could win this division. So coaching matters in this league. Matt LaFleur's got to do a better job with the Packers.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And again, I feel bad. I do feel a little bit bad for Aaron Rodgers, but you did it to yourself, man. You did. You could have left, and you chose to stay there, knowing that they weren't gonna help you, out on the offensive end of the football. We know they weren't drafting no receivers for you. They ain't been drafting no receivers, and you still, chose to stay there. I understand the check is a lot of money, but so you can't really get mad now, because $50 million is a lot. Though. I ain't gonna hold you. I probably would take $50 million.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, Aaron Rodgers has made a lot of money in the game, and at this point in his career,
absolutely.
At this point in his career, no different than what Breeze experienced with the Saints and what Brady before he left New England and even in Tampa. You can leave a little bit of money on the table to make sure you have the weapons. Did it have to be a $40+ million a year salary? No, you're telling me he couldn't survive off $30 million a year? Leave a little money so Devontae could get his?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I agree with you 1,000%. He made his bed, and now he is going to have to lie in it. However bad it may be, and judging by the schedule, it is going to get very bad. So let's start planning. Start planning for next season?
Yeah, I think he ain't got to worry about what they're going to do with the pick next year because it's going to be a high one. So it's gonna be somebody good coming in there. Um, I don't even know what they do with Aaron Rodgers. I guess that's a conversation we have for later in the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's really quick. We're gonna make this one quick. We're gonna the snooze fest game of the week between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Los Angeles Rams, the two Super Bowl champions from the past 2 years, are both now kind of bottom of the barrel teams. I know both teams. Well, on the Buck side, they're dealing with major injuries. On the Ram side, they're just dealing with loss of a couple of their key players that really made the difference. Oh, man, but this, I don't know, because they both teams were bad today. Obviously, I guess if the Rams they pull off get the W in the situation, or the Buccaneers, but they're both really bad. No matter who wins this game, both of these teams
Well,
have been horrible this season. Which team has been the worst though?
well, and shout out to Ryan because I was just about to say it. I'm watching the game on my phone as we're speaking. That's why I keep looking down. Tampa Bay has just scored with 9 seconds left, and it looks like it's going to win the game. Um, Tom Brady brought him down, and Tom, I believe, passed another milestone because I believe that's 100,000 completions for him. I got to double check on that because there's like I said, I apologize. I'm looking at my phone, so the alert is coming through as I'm trying to watch the game at the same time. Tampa Bay is up 3 with 9 seconds to go as Tom took him down the field for a touchdown. But in terms of who's been worse, I think it has to be the Rams. I think we all knew Tampa Bay was going to struggle this year because of how much they had lost on their offensive line. 3/5 of their line wasn't going to be there. We knew Chris Godwin was going to need some time to work himself in, and we also knew they weren't going to have Gronk. So we expected some struggles offensively. If they win this game, they get to 4-5. They tie Atlanta for the division, and they have the tiebreak over Atlanta. So I think they're kind of where we thought they would be, though I don't think we thought they would lose to Pittsburgh and Carolina those back-to-back weeks, but they're still kind of what we thought. But for the Rams, the Super Bowl champs, the way they've struggled really offensively. Sean McVay is an offensive mastermind, but for the way they have struggled, I think that's the most surprising thing for me because week in, week out, these are the type of games we see them play where they're struggling just to get to 20 points. And I don't think anyone saw that coming at the start of the season. You thought with Cooper Kupp, you thought with some of those running backs and some of the things that McVay is able to do that they would at least be able to offensively score some points. They haven't been able to do that. The defense hasn't looked sharp either. They, to me, have been a bigger surprise and disappointment.
Yeah. And listen, at the end of the day, last season, we knew what LA was doing. They were bulking up. They was juicing. they went all in last season, getting pretty much everybody that they could. I love what Odell Beckham being on the team. They had a really good core of guys. You were also able to bring over Von Miller, and they got the job done. So I'm not even really that mad at them this season for the way they're playing because I know they put everything into last season and they got the championship, and that's what we doing this for. Obviously, there's a salary cap in football, so you can't always just maintain the type of roster that you would like to maintain, even if you're in a big market city and the team could afford it. That salary cap stops a lot of things. And unfortunately, they fell victim to the salary cap. You got all these guys, under big contracts, Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, Kupp is getting money, Stafford is getting money, and it's hard to compete with yourself. Basically, it's hard to compete with yourself because you don't have access to the financials that you may have had a year ago. And let's say like the difference between a team like the Rams and a team like the Eagles, a lot of those guys are young on smaller contracts. So yeah, you can kind of now build up. With the Rams, a lot of those guys were seasoned vets in their prime, all on big contracts. And once you reach your maximum point and you can't bring guys back, you can't afford to bring, Von Miller back, which we both have agreed that probably was the biggest loss that the Rams faced this season. It gets tough. As far as the Bucks go, they're just dealing with a lot of injuries. I think that offensive line. Ryan Jensen is a huge loss. That's an All-Pro guard that you're missing out on right now. And Brady needs that. He needs a little bit more time in the pocket. Obviously, we just seen him make get down the field in the last couple of seconds to take the lead in this game. But when you're dealing with, like you said, no more Gronk in the lineup. One of the big acquisitions on offensive end, which was supposed to be to help fill the void that Antonio Brown left on the team, which was Julio Jones. He's probably finished, and that's my guy. But he's probably, he's at the latter years of his career. He can't stay healthy. He can't stay on the field. So that's going to be tough for those guys. Godwin has not looked like himself this season. We know Mike Evans missed a game earlier this season because of the suspension. So they've been dealing with a lot. Shaq Barrett just went out for the season 2 weeks ago. He was done for the season. So, they just don't have the actual manpower on the field. They got the guys locked in on the roster because remember, we wanted last year how they were able to make everything work and bring those guys back after they won the Super Bowl, but they actually finessed the system and did it. They just have to get healthy. That's for them. Yeah. Now, fortunately, they're in the South, so they may have a chance to still stick around. Especially, this was an important win for them, and the South is so fickle. With the Panthers and the Saints really not having any type of go-to quarterback that's feasible, so they still have a chance. But yeah, I think for the Rams, it's over with.
Yeah, I think Tampa. This could have potentially been a must-win game. I mean, if they lose this game and go to 3-6. It would have been a very tough road for them to get back in the mix of making the playoffs. Winning this game instead, you go to 4-5. You keep yourself kind of in the mix. Like I mentioned, you're still tied with Atlanta for the division right now. Then you figure it out. But just a couple things I want to mention about this game, because without looking at the numbers, Trip, I said to you, remember as we were starting, I said I'm watching Tampa and they just look so bad offensively, right? Mm-hmm. Tom Brady threw the ball 58 times today, which is not the recipe they want. They don't want, and think about it. They scored 16 points. They scored 16 points. We're not talking about a shootout where they went for 40 points and he threw the ball 58 times. He threw the ball 58 times. Trip, I'm gonna say a number to you that you're not gonna believe. Okay, and not even I'll change it. I'll change it up for you. He threw the ball 58 times. What do you think he was averaging per completion?
I want to say 6 yards.
4.8.
Jeez, I mean,
if that's not the definition of dink and dunk, I don't know what is. Tom Brady was trying to do everything he could to win today. 58 times and you're averaging just under 5 yards per completion. When you look at his leading receiver today was some dude named Otten. I never heard of this dude ever, and I watch football every Sunday. But Mike Evans went out of this game. It looked like with a rib injury. Chris Godwin caught 7 passes for 36 yards. That's dink and dunk. Yeah. Their leading runner today was White with 8 carries for 27 yards. Mm-hmm. Leonard Fournette, apparently he's still working himself into game shape, and I love Lenny, but 9 carries for 19 yards. That's not what they.
Wait, hold on. What week are we in?
This is week 9.
There ain't no damn working yourself into game shape no more. That's over with.
That's all I can assume because listen, for a guy as skilled as Leonard Fournette, 9 carries for 19 yards. I gotta assume you're still working yourself into game shape. That's all I can assume. Point being, though, Tampa Bay literally they clawed their way to a victory today. This is not a recipe for long-term success. And again, a win today salvages their season. They're still not a contender. They're not in the mix. They're just still on life support. For the Rams, it might be over, though, because the Seahawks look very good, and we both have the 49ers as a legitimate contender in the NFC. I think for the Rams, they're done. And you mentioned the Von Miller loss, which we both felt was going to be great for them. But I think what hurts them even more is that they chose Bobby Wagner over Von Miller, because they could have brought Von Miller back. And instead, they went after Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner has not contributed what they thought he was going to bring to that defense. And so it's kind of twofold. It's like we lose Von Miller, and then we replace him with a guy who has not contributed in a way that we at least expected.
Yeah. Shout out to Ryan again. He's asking us about the coaching staff in Tampa. I like Todd Bowles as a coach. The thing is, but and again, a lot of stuff that we just mentioned, people are gonna have to realize Todd Bowles doesn't have the same Bucks team that they had 2 years ago when they won a Super Bowl, or even a year ago. Guys, when you look at Gronkowski, Rob Gronkowski is probably the greatest tight end of all time. If you look at his numbers and what he was able to do and the amount of time he was able to do it, I was looking at the list of receptions for a tight end and touchdowns the other day, and Rob Gronkowski's numbers pretty much blow everybody's out the water with the exception of Tony Gonzalez, and we know the tenure that Tony Gonzalez had in football. But Rob Gronkowski is a absolute game changer. Okay, he's no longer there. That has been Tom Brady's security blanket for maybe 10 years. That's one. Two, Antonio Brown. Love him, hate him, however you feel about him, his antics off the field. Antonio Brown is an all-time great wide receiver. You don't have him anymore. Okay? Leonard Fournette, who was looking like a beast, for the past 2 seasons, Eric says he's still getting himself into game shape. I don't know what's going on with that.
That's all I can assume. If you're running for 19 yards, if you are the starting running back running for 19 yards, I got to assume that you're still trying to get yourself in shape.
Okay, so Leonard Fournette is still getting himself into game shape. Godwin, again, he has not looked the same since early last season. He's missed a lot of time, and coming back this season, he's not looking like the Chris Godwin that we've come to know and love. Okay, Mike Evans, again, we had a suspension earlier. Then when you add in the injuries to Shaq Barrett, who's one of the top defensive players in this league, Ryan Jensen, who's one of the top guards in football, none of these guys are here anymore. The secondary has been banged up this season. So I don't want to just be like, the coaching is bad, because I think Todd Bowles is a great coach. I really wish that he had this Bucks roster healthy because – you know how it is. The brothers don't really get the shot, get those head coaching nods like that. So the fact that he was able to take over the job for the Bucks, but now they're losing and looking like this, it's going to fall on Todd Bowles. He's going to get a lot of the blame because he's the head coach, and a lot of people are going to look past all of the things that myself and Eric have been mentioning in regards to that Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. But as far as the coaching goes, I think Todd Bowles is a great coach. I just would like for him to have a healthy roster so we could really see his potential and what he can do.
And I'm going to take it a step further. You mentioned all the injuries. I don't think Antoine Winfield played today either. I didn't see him on the field.
No, he was out. He's been out
and
too.
That's a Pro Bowl right. That's a Pro Bowl caliber do-it-all safety for them because they like to use him as a slot corner on third down. So he's a guy that gives them a little more versatility. But I'll take it a step further. Todd Bowles walked into a very tough situation. One, look at the timing of when Bruce Arians walked away from this team. It was right before draft night, and Todd Bowles was then handed the keys to a team that was in a little bit of dysfunction because Brady wasn't even sure if he was coming back. At that time, we still looked at Tom Brady as being retired, and then Brady comes back. You also had the kind of back and forth with Byron Leftwich potentially leaving. He had the Jaguars job. Then it was like, no, he doesn't have it. So now he's coming back. So you have all this kind of turnover within the coaching staff where you're trying to get everything back settled. Then you get the injuries thrown in there. Now you get everything that's been taking place with Tom Brady's personal life. These are all distractions that are very tough to overcome in the middle of a season. So I think Todd Bowles has done the best he can. Defensively, Todd Bowles has been a great defensive coach. And the defense has still been pretty solid. Again, they only gave up 13 points today, even though they're missing 2 key figures of that defense. So he's done, I think, the best job he could do under the circumstances of what's taking place. I think we could better evaluate Todd Bowles probably in another month or two. If they're still competitive and they're still hanging around with possibly making the playoffs, then I think we got to applaud him and say he's done the best he can do, in spite of all the circumstances.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. Hope that answers your question, Ryan. We still got a little bit more NFL that we have to get into. I hate to, we got to keep going back to the Washington talk, but Dan Snyder is looking into selling the team. If you guys tuned into the live on Friday with myself and Eric, we spoke about Jay-Z and Jeff Bezos trying to possibly team up to throw their hat in the ring to buy the Washington Commanders. But just today, reports came out that Kevin Durant is also interested in forming some type of investment group to purchase the Washington Commanders. I think Kevin Durant has a lot going on his own sport that he needs to be focused on right now, not worried about buying the Washington Commanders. But I always love a brother trying to expand his portfolio.
I agree. If he can be a part of that group, I think it would be amazing. I don't know, and somebody can correct me when they see this in the chat. I don't know if it's considered a conflict of interest, being that he's a current player in another league. And not that I think it's a conflict of interest. I just wonder how other owners will look at it. Is it a conflict because he already has so many relationships with players? I believe he gave a signed jersey, a game jersey, to somebody on the Commanders Friday night when they were in DC. So I don't know if owners will look at that in a negative way, that, hey, he has relationships with players in the league and him as an owner could affect how negotiations go and this, that, and the third. But ultimately, if he can be a part of a group, I think that would be great as well, and great for him and great for his portfolio.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I'm all for it. The NFL needs a little melanin in that ownership pool.
Yeah, we've
I'm all
talked
for
about
it.
that plenty of time.
Yes, whether it be Kevin Durant in on an ownership group, whether it be Jay-Z teaming up with Jeff Bezos, which we spoke about, also really liking that. But either way, I think it's time for Washington and to move on from Snyder. And it's definitely time from Snyder to move on from Washington. So we'll keep you guys posted on how that goes if we actually get some traction with one of these investment groups.
And it was,
Before we get
and I apologize, real quick. Sorry, Trey.
Right.
It was Terry McLaurin. He was seen with Terry McLaurin after the game in DC. He had given Terry McLaurin his jersey. That's why I was referencing in regards to relationships with players across leagues and stuff.
Okay. No, I got you. Shout out to KD. 2 games we got to preview really quick before we switch over to the NBA. The Sunday night game, Chiefs Titans. Obviously, I'm going with Patrick Mahomes on this one. I got to take the Chiefs. I don't know what's going on with the Titans pass game or lack thereof, because it's pretty much been non-existent the past couple of weeks. Whether it's been Tannehill or Willis, it's been horrible. Thankfully, they have a running back out there by the name of Derrick Henry who can get you over 200 yards in a game and pretty much win a game by his damn self. But I got to take the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, and those guys. That offense is really starting to gel right now. And then they added Kadarius Toney, who's had 2 weeks now to acclimate himself to that offense. When you combine that with the chemistry that's being built between Mahomes and Juju, obviously we know that the Kelsey chemistry has always been there. McCole Hardman is doing better week by week with this team. Now you add a speedster like Kadarius Toney, who's a really good route runner as well. If they could just get a little bit more consistency out of that running game, they're going to be a problem moving forward, or even more of a problem than they already are, I should say.
Yeah, as we highlighted Friday, I think Mahomes is having his best season since 2018 when he won MVP. We both picked him to win this game. I liked him to win this game. Unfortunately for Malik Willis, making his second career NFL start in Arrowhead in a primetime game and having to look across that sideline and seeing Patrick Mahomes and them guys, it's a tall task to ask of any quarterback, man. I like Kansas City tonight. And as you highlighted, the weapons are starting to gel. Juju has looked really good the last couple of weeks. Now you add Toney to that. I really like the rookie Pacheco. I like Kansas City in this game. I like them to win comfortably.
Shout out to Pacheco. That's a Rutgers running back right there. And Rutgers is looking at a lot of my guys from Holy Trinity right now. So big shout out to Pacheco. Shout out to Rutgers, man. Y'all gonna get some good players coming in the next couple of years. But you're going Chiefs in this one too.
I like Chiefs. I can double check where the line sits right now, right before we start. I know when we spoke on Friday, the line was like 11.5. I think the Chiefs are going to cover that just because, again, Malik Willis, this is a tall task. They're going to have to throw the ball to keep up with Kansas City. Derrick Henry is not going to get 30 carries and be able to just bleed out the clock in this game, because Kansas City's defense is a little better now, too, than it's been in the past. Kansas City's going to force them to kind of throw the ball. They're going to force them in some uncomfortable situations in the game. And that's why I think Kansas City wins this one pretty easily.
Okay. And then the Monday night game, we got Baltimore going at the Saints. Baltimore will be missing, I want to say Lamar Jackson's only top tier threat at receiver, Mark Andrews. So he will be out. Does that change things for you? Because I know on a live Friday we both kind of were going with Baltimore to win this game, but now that you know Mark Andrews won't be playing on Monday Night Football, does that change the outcome for you?
Nope. Because Baltimore is still the third best team in the AFC. I'm doubling down on what I said Friday night. And shout out to Ryan because I was gonna say I think Bateman might be out, but it's all right because you know who's been the underrated star of this offense? Devin Duvernay. And Devin Duvernay might have a big game Monday night. But I like Baltimore anyway because I think they're starting to round into shape. And the record, I think, doesn't do it justice. I'll say it again as I highlighted on Friday. You look at their losses and in the manner in which they lost, those were all games that they were leading going into the fourth quarter, and they had an opportunity to finish off. The Buffalo game they were winning, the Miami game they were up big, and the Giant game they were up 10. Those are scenarios where you can see, for the most part, Baltimore was the better team, and one or two possessions didn't go their way, and they lost those games. Doesn't change anything for me because I think Baltimore's a really good team, and their record isn't indicative of how good they are. I think they win on a Monday night. Andy Dalton, if he play, it don't matter. If Jameis play, it don't matter. I like Baltimore.
I mean, Eric, you know you ain't gonna get me to change my
I know
opinions.
I ain't gotta convince you.
You ain't gotta convince me. If y'all saw the live on Friday, y'all seen I had my Baltimore Ravens hat on Friday because we made a big acquisition by the name of Roquan Smith, who's leading the league in tackles right now and one of the best linebackers in football right now, stepping into a position where the Ravens have lacked at. And we're used to having some of the top linebackers in football playing in Baltimore. They now have Roquan Smith, who's going to change a lot on that defense. I want to actually highlight something that you said, Eric, on Friday in regards to Roquan Smith and that defense. You said they were at about 385 yards per game they were giving up on the defensive end of the football.
That's correct. Yep. They're averaging, they're giving up 383 to be exact, 383 total yards per game.
Okay, and you said that they will, with the addition of Roquan Smith, that number would start to decrease as the season moves forward. Correct?
Drastically, it's gonna start Monday night, but every week we could check that number, and I guarantee you're gonna see that number start to come down because of the addition of Roquan.
I agree, and the other part to that is I think that is going to be a huge lift for that defense because not only is he super talented, he's also going to be the vocal leader that they've been missing on that defense. We know that the linebacker is usually the quarterback of the defense, and now they have one of those guys, one of them ones who is one of the best linebackers in football that will be leading that defense. That's one. And two, listen, you can't replace a Mark Andrews in your offense. He's top 3 tight end in the league. He's been that for the last 2-3 seasons. You can't replace that. However, they do have a young kid in Isaiah Likely who was very feasible this past week. And I think we see a repeat performance from him with no Mark Andrews in the lineup. I think he steps his game up a little bit further. I don't know if I could say, Lamar Jackson's favorite would be throwing to the tight end, but since that's all he pretty much has had his whole career as the tight end, I think that he's going to continue to go to the tight end in this situation. I think Likely has a similar, if not even better, performance than he had last week. Now that he got he was able to shake the cobwebs off and really get some game action. Now he's going to have his time again. So I think he'll kind of step in and fill that void. You mentioned the guy in Duvernay who, you're right, who has stepped his game up consistently week by week. And then, Lamar Jackson is just Lamar Jackson. And guess what, guys? He doesn't have a contract right now. And he's coming for all of the money that they said he couldn't have. Lamar Jackson is coming for all that money. He's going to get it back this season times 10. I still got to go with the Baltimore Ravens to win this game against a Saints team that really don't know what they want to do at the quarterback position right now, whether they want to go back to Jameis, whether they want to stay with Dalton. They might even want to give Taysom Hill a try at quarterback now because technically he might have the best QBR out of all the quarterbacks in New Orleans right now. So, yeah, my pick stays the same. I'm still going with Baltimore in the Monday night game. With that being said, though, let's talk some NBA. We got to talk Kyrie again, just because you know, the suspensions have been laid out not only by the NBA but also by Nike. The Kyrie 8 was supposed to drop next month. Excuse me, this week rather. I'm sorry, on November 8th. The Kyrie 8 was supposed to drop. Nike has suspended their relationship with Kyrie Irving right now, so that sneaker will not be dropping on November 8th. And then there was a list given to Kyrie Irving that he needs to check off. I think there's about 6 things on the list that he needs to comply with in order for him to return to the court. When you saw the list that they gave Kyrie, what were your thoughts on the list?
When I saw the list, I thought it further emphasized what I stated on Friday, that I'm not sure if Kyrie Irving ever plays for the Brooklyn Nets again, because just the 5 game suspension alone keeps him away from the team for about 12 days. As I mentioned, they played the 5 games over the course of a little more than a week and a half. So now you add a list of things that need to be done within those 12 days, which is almost impossible because the ADL has already said they're not going to accept his donation. So now you got to start from scratch with the ADL and try to rebuild that relationship, which might take a little longer. Now you're asking him to do things that probably can't be done within a 1 week schedule. I think this kind of delays his eventual return. And just because he does these things does not mean that the Nets automatically lift the suspension. Because if you listen to the wording of the original press release, it was he is not deemed fit to be part of this team. So it's up to their discretion when they feel he's fit to be part of this team. Even if that checklist is done, but Joe Tsai feels like, hey, you still not getting it, or mentally we're not on the same page here about it, they might hold him out for another week, which is another thing on the checklist. He's got to meet with the ownership group and figure this thing out. We talked about it on Friday, Trip, and I told you, ownership, specifically Joe Tsai, is upset with Kyrie because of the lack of communication with Kyrie, and he feels he has bent over backwards to try to appease Kyrie over the last year and a half. So I don't think he plays for the Nets. I think this is all the signals of him being out of Brooklyn probably by the end of this month.
All right, so just for you guys at home, I want to read the list so you guys know exactly what's on the list that Kyrie is supposed to be following. First, he needs to apologize / condemn the movie that he tweeted about. Secondly, he needs to make a $500,000 donation to anti-hate causes. Third, he needs sensitivity training. Fourth, he needs anti-Semitic training. 5, he needs to meet with the ADL and Jewish leaders. 6, he needs to meet with Joe Tsai to demonstrate, I guess, quote unquote, understanding whatever that means. I don't know specifically what that means, but those are the list of things that Kyrie is going to have to do if he does want to return and play basketball for the Brooklyn Nets. When we spoke about this on Friday, we spoke about, Kyrie being Kyrie and doing Kyrie things. Listen, I think there are ways to go about things, and there are ways that you don't go about things. And I think that when you tweet a controversial documentary without any subcontext to that, you leave yourself open to this type of scrutiny. I think that it's, again, I don't believe Kyrie did anything wrong in posting about the documentary, but I do think there's a responsibility that comes along with just posting something like that when you know the type of climate that this country is in right now when it comes to race relations. You can't just, post things like that and not have any type of breakdown of why you're posting it, what you're posting it for in the moment, what was going through your mind at the time. Kyrie literally just posted the picture of the documentary and that's it. So now, when that happens, obviously a lot of people are just going to go to the worst possible outcomes in that situation. That's what we have now. That's where Kyrie is at right now, where he's dealing with the worst possible response that he could have gotten from that. And it could cost him his tenure with the Brooklyn Nets, could possibly cost him his NBA career. I know Kyrie has kind of, he did make somewhat of an apology. I don't know how, if people feel about it. My thing with apologies is, do they really matter? Because you never know how a person really feels, if they're actually changed, if they have a changed mindset, or if they're just apologizing because you scolded me and you took things away from me and you could possibly take more things away from me. So let me just apologize and get it out the way. I don't know if that's the case with Kyrie. I can't speak on his personal mindset and what's going through his head. So I can't say in that regard. But all I can say is I hope that he's able to get past this, because I mentioned that list to you, Eric, but I want to mention another list to you as well. And these are just a list of some of the things that Kyrie has done off the basketball court. Donated $323,000 to Feeding America. Partnered with City Harvest to ensure 250,000 meals were distributed to New Yorkers. Shout out to City Harvest, because I literally just did an event with them 2 days ago. Partnered with Nike to donate 17 pallets of food and masks to Standing Rock Sioux tribe. He committed $1.5 million to help pay WNBA players who opted out of the 2020 season. Paid off the college tuition of 9 HBCU students from Lincoln University, and purchased a house for the family of George Floyd, and that was according to somebody that we both rock with, Steven Jackson. So, and the reason why I said that list as well, because I do want to be clear that off the court, Kyrie is someone who is very involved, despite how you feel about what he posts or what he says. He's very involved. He gives a lot back to the community. He's donated a lot of money. He's donated time, food. So I do want to just, kind of preface that a little bit, just so you guys at home, I don't want you to just think, oh, this is just another basketball player who's anti-Semitic and that's the end of the story. Kyrie is very involved in our community, and he's been doing things within the community for a very long time, and throughout the world for a very long time. So I do want to say that.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the second list, because we talked about it on Friday, and as I mentioned, I don't think Kyrie's a bad person. The critique I've had of Kyrie is as a basketball player and what he's done as a player. But I love the second list because it speaks to who he is as a man. Where Kyrie went wrong here, as I've said several times, is not the post. And I think too many people are making the post the issue. The post is not what the issue is. The issue became when Kyrie was questioned about the post, the stance he took. Because as we've heard so many times, whether you watch the documentary or read the book, or haven't watched the documentary or read the book, there are some false statements and false narratives that are painted in there about Jewish people. And I want to just give an example. If I'm wrong, again, I would have no problem with somebody saying you're wrong for saying this or correcting me. Trip, you spend a lot of time around me. You know me personally. You know my family. We've worked together and we spent time just as friends, right? Mm-hmm. If I went on social media and people who don't know me, right, if they saw me just post a picture of the Confederate flag, there would be people who would be like, what is this about? What are you promoting? Right? They don't know me as a man. They just see the post. When you question me about it, you or anyone, that's my opportunity to explain what I'm posting. Right? We know what that flag represents in this country. So I may be posting it just to create conversation. I may be posting it with a deeper motive behind it. But once I post it, I know I'm going to get a reaction. And now that's my opportunity to answer those questions for the reason of posting it. Kyrie Irving had that opportunity. And instead of him saying anything, he took a defiant stance and said, I'm not promoting anything. I just wanted to post it. He made it seem as if it wasn't a big deal. Right. And that's why I keep saying that's where the flaw was made. It was not the post. Let's not focus on the post, because he's not suspended for the post. Right. The NBA didn't come out and say, hey, he's got to sit down because he posted this. And I'll take it a step further. I encourage anyone to look this up. Look at Joe Tsai, the owner of the Nets. Look at his tweet after Kyrie posted that. He didn't condemn Kyrie. He said in his own post, I would love to sit down with Kyrie and speak to him and maybe educate him on certain things that he may not understand. He never said Kyrie was an idiot. He never said, what the hell are you doing, Kyrie? He said, I would love to sit down and speak with him. Again, create dialogue. I just want to know what you were thinking when you posted this, or maybe there's a deeper meaning that I don't understand. But Kyrie never took that opportunity. Kyrie continued to double and triple down and say things that just made it even more confusing for everyone. And people have to remember, we highlighted this Friday, when he got suspended, that was a full 6 days after the post, which means the Nets and the NBA gave him more than enough time to try to explain what was the meaning behind the post. You see the backlash, you see the outrage, you see people questioning, what are your motives? And instead of you answering those questions honestly and speaking to what you were trying to insinuate, promote, or create, you left it up for interpretation. So if you leave it up for interpretation, then you leave your employer no choice but to react and respond. The Nets are a business. So the Nets gotta protect their bottom line. They can't have people sitting courtside, which they did last week, wearing shirts that are directed at Kyrie Irving because of comments or a post that he made. And I think too many people are not realizing that. People are thinking that this is solely about a post. It's not about a post. Now, I don't like that the Nets are creating this list of things he has to do to be able to get back on the court. As we've said here, I think that only prolongs the situation, and that also kind of creates the room now to get him out of Brooklyn. That's where I think they're going. And that list, I think, is also the fallout of everything that's taken place during Kyrie's time in Brooklyn. It's deeper than this post. It's deeper than this list. Kyrie and the Brooklyn Nets have not seen eye to eye for quite some time, and I think we're heading towards a split. But Kyrie Irving had the opportunity to control this narrative, and he left it open to interpretation. And when you leave it open to interpretation, you let other people create the narrative, and that's why we've ended up at this point.
Yeah, listen, you're absolutely right. You know, that's why I said there's a way to do these things, and just the way he went about it led to a whole avalanche of consequences that are still at this point continuing to come in, because we don't know who else is going to try to distance themselves from Kyrie Irving, because we know that's what happens. We, you know, in these type of situations. So again, listen, I hope that there is some level of understanding. I hope that they do have a productive meeting with the JDL and Joe Tsai, the NBA, Adam Silver, whoever else needs to be involved. I hope that they can have a very, you know, a very healthy conversation to where they leave out of that meeting with some type of understanding of one another, and then we can move on from this. Because again, I want to support Kyrie. I want to see him do well. I want to see all our people do well, you know. But listen, there's journeys that you're gonna have to travel on in order to get to that place. And right now, it ain't gonna be an easy journey that Kyrie has to travel in order to get back to the Nets organization. But I do believe he can do it. So I want to see him get back. But again, this thing is gonna go day by day. I'm sure this is not going to be the last time we speak about Kyrie Irving, because obviously we haven't even seen him start the checklist just yet. So we're still, you know, we're going to be talking about this for a couple of more weeks at least, you know, until there's some type of decision. Because right now, you know, it's indefinite suspension with a minimum of 5 games, and then you got to comply to everything on the list. I don't know how this whole thing is going to unfold, just because Kyrie is someone that will double down on his stance, and we know he has no problem taking a season off to, you know, to stand on his principles.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and like we said Friday, that was I don't want to say my issue, because if he decided to apologize after the suspension, that's his business. That was just the only thing I found odd, because it was like, if you were defiant, stand on that defiance. Don't bend the knee and buckle now that they suspending you, because I've already refused to publicly apologize. And if that's what you believe, then that's what you believe. And I respect that as a man. And I'll say this really quickly, man. I was listening to a podcast, and Roger Bell was on it, former NBA player Roger Bell. Roger used to work in the Cleveland Cavaliers front office when Bron and Kyrie were there. And the podcast host had asked him, like, you know, why is there this appeal for Kyrie, where you see so many players and people within the league who really love Kyrie because they go to bat for him? And he said, it's really tough to define, because he didn't have a great relationship with Kyrie. It was kind of a working relationship. But he said seeing Kyrie day in, day out, the way Kyrie interacts with people's children, the way Kyrie treats people is kind of the part of Kyrie that the rest of the world never gets to see. He said he is so charismatic and he's so good with people on a face-to-face basis that if you've ever encountered him, it's kind of tough for you to ever want to turn your back or say something negative about him because you just know who he is as a man. And I guess that's what creates this great mystery, because for outsiders like us, for any other media types, we don't get to see that. We only get to see what's on the court. We only get to see the press conferences. But for the people that know him, they speak to how, how great he is as a person. And you mentioned that list, what he did for the Floyd family is amazing. He had no connection to the Floyd family. He didn't have to do that. He did that out the kind of his heart. He didn't have to donate the money to the WNBA. He didn't have to do any of these things that you mentioned on that list, yet he does it on his own with no cameras around. And I think that's what creates the great conflict when we talk about Kyrie, because we really like him as a man. We just wish that it would translate to the point where the rest of the world and the league could see it that way as well.
Yeah. Absolutely, bro. That's basically what it is. So listen, again, I hope there's some type of understanding and Kyrie can just get back to to playing the sport of basketball game that he loves, because I think that's what's best for everybody is for us to get some understanding and be ready to move on from this situation with a different type of mindset. NBA injury report. Let's talk about it. A couple of big names going to be out for a little while. One of which is in Philly right now, James Harden. He's going to be out for at least a month. Then you got Pascal Siakam, a former NBA champion with the Toronto Raptors. He's going to be out at least 2 weeks with a shoulder injury. And Suns' Cam Johnson has a torn meniscus, so he's going to be out for a little while. My question to you, Eric, which one of these injuries is going to have the biggest impact on their respective team?
So I think all three are very interesting because of different dynamics they represent. But just to answer your question first, the biggest injury to me is Siakam. Siakam is the go-to guy in Toronto. He's the number one guy in Toronto. Obviously, they have playoff aspirations. It's an opportunity for Scotty Barnes to step up, but Siakam is your go-to guy. In Philly, they expect to get Embiid back. I know he's missed the last 2 games. He was a little sick. But you're going to get Embiid back, and you'll be fine. And the way Tyrese Maxey's been playing, I mean, Tyrese Maxey right now averaging over 24 points a game. I think you could survive without Harden for a month just based off of the way Maxey's playing. With Phoenix, the Cam Johnson injury is interesting because they were having issues with Jay Crowder. He's been sitting out this time. And I wonder now if they kind of buckle and get the dialogue with Jay going again and try to bring him back into the mix there. But it's got to be Siakam. He's the number one guy in Toronto. That's a huge loss to have. They don't have anybody else of that same skill set. Though Scotty Barnes is close, they don't have a guy who can get you 20 on every night and be a leader of the team. So that's going to be the one to watch.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you on that one, Eric. As much as I feel like James Harden being out for a month is a big deal for Philly, they have a guy on the roster who's an MVP caliber player in Joel Embiid who can kind of carry this team. Especially if you're telling me that Maxey is going to continue to play the way that he's been playing, this season. I like I like Philly's chances during this time. I think they can kind of maintain. Phoenix, obviously, Cam is a role player, but he's a big part of that rotation in Phoenix. So they're going to have to make a couple of minor tweaks to really, kind of fix the situation in Phoenix just to kind of replace him. Not really replace him, obviously, because he is a big part of that roster. But, when you still have 2 all-stars left on the roster with Chris Paul, Devin Booker, you have, a young up-and-coming big man like DeAndre Ayton. They still have Bridges out there. So they still have guys that can kind of step in and fill the void for Cam Johnson. But when you look at Toronto, you're taking away their best player in Pascal Siakam. One of the better guys in this league. And that's what you're losing when you lose Siakam for these couple of weeks that he's going to be gone for. You mentioned Scotty Barnes, who I do like, and I hope he can actually fill that void. Hopefully they're gonna need more from Fred Van Fleet, OG Anunoby as well to kind of hold it down. But ultimately, I think that that Toronto team is going to struggle with in the absence of Pascal Siakam. Right now in the standings, Toronto is in 5th place at 5-4. You're talking about losing your best player for 2 weeks. Might be kind of tough to maintain that 5th seed in a very competitive Eastern Conference without Pascal Siakam. But again, listen, guys do step up during these times. So I want to see who's going to step up and be that guy or guys, because it could be a collection of guys to kind of to fill the void that you lose without having your best player on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point because tonight that's what they're getting. As you were speaking on it, I went to just check. They're playing the Bulls tonight. They're winning right now in the fourth quarter. But Van Fleet has played well. He's got 30 and 11. You got Scotty Barnes with 19 and 10, and then OG is giving them 20 and 5 tonight. So it is a collective of the 3 other guys having to step up. And like I said, this is a great opportunity. I think Scotty Barnes is a really good young player. He's going to get more opportunities. He's going to get more shots. He got 19 shots on the board tonight. Only Fred VanVleet has more shots than him. So they're going to run him a little bit more for Scotty Barnes. But you're right. Over the course of 2 weeks, we'll get a better idea of if they can keep up that level. And then you also got to assume that just because he's only out for 2 weeks doesn't mean he's going to come back and be that same performer. It may take another week or two for him to get back to where he was playing at. But Pascal is an all-star in this league, and that's always going to be felt in comparison to Philly. Like you said, they got Embiid, they got Maxey, they still got Tobias Harris. They got pieces there, so they can survive without Harden. The Toronto one, that's a little tougher.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. And then really quick, before we leave the NBA, we got to shout out the Bucks, still the only undefeated team left in the NBA at 9-0. I shared a little funny video from Giannis into the group chat the other day where he's like, "Oh man, I'm athletic, I could dunk, I'm handsome, I'm this, I'm that." God had to humble me somehow, so he made it so that I can't shoot threes. But you gotta love this kid, man. He is an amazing talent. He is the best player in basketball right now, and I think he's going to continue to be the best player in basketball for the foreseeable future because he is an elite talent on both sides of the basketball. And that, as far as the top guys go in this league, as much as I love Luka, he's explosive on the offensive end of basketball, but he is not anywhere close to being elite on the defensive end. Joel Embiid, who I love, is one of those guys who is elite on both sides of the basketball. But then you go to our back-to-back MVP, who I didn't agree with that vote. He's not an elite two-way player with in Jokic. Explosive, great offensive player, can do so many things on the offensive end, but he's not an elite two-way player. He doesn't play that level of defense. He'll get out there and guard you, but he ain't playing at an elite level. So I still would say Giannis is going to be that for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I mean, Giannis is a video game creation. He's a guy that you would create on 2K in terms of, he could play all 5 positions. He could do it all. Like I said, obviously he doesn't shoot threes that well, and there are some nights where he still struggles from the free throw line, but everything else is phenomenal. He's a great leader for that team. I love the clip. It was circulating. Everybody was laughing about it. You talked about that clip, but there's another one where he wanted to get his brother in the game the other night. Yes. And he purposely dribbled the ball out of bounds just to make sure his brother got them last 30 seconds in. But that speaks to leadership. You know what I'm saying? That's going to mean so much to his brother or any other bench player than it would to him. He don't need them last 30 seconds to do what he's been doing. But I'm going to be watching them a lot over the next 10 days, man. They got some good games coming up. They're 9-0 right now. They're leading the pack in the East as well as in the league, best record in the league. But they got 2 games with Atlanta and a game with Cleveland coming up all within the next 10 days, which are going to be very good games to watch because all 3 of those teams, I think, have been playing really well.
Listen, how they said it at the Carter? Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I am.
I am.
And we saw that when that man got a turnover on his stat sheet for the night. Just so his brother could get Bud.
And then walk right past him like, I'm not even going to look at you. That's my brother. He got to get in there.
Yeah, that's what we're doing outside. So it is what it is. Accept it. You know what I'm saying? I'm here, he's here. That's it. Listen, the only other person who I know that really put in that type of work for their brother in the league is J.R. Smith, because I don't know how Chris Smith managed to get a contract
He
with
got
the
he did
Knicks.
get his brother a contract. He did get
He
him a
took his
contract over
brother
there.
contract. So I got to rank those two up there, right there. I'm actually have to rank the J.R. Smith one a little bit higher because he got him a contract. Even though I'm sure Giannis is a big part of the reason that the Nets is, but the Nets should be
But
in the. I
the
think
Nassers was
the
on the
spot
Laker
for.
team that won in the bubble, right?
No, that was Costas.
Oh, that was
There's a lot
Coach.
of the
My fault. My
brothers.
fault.
There's
My
a lot
fault.
of brothers. Yeah, there's a
mean,
lot of.
Giannis getting everybody a deal, though. You know what I'm saying? Giannis take care of everybody, but
He
that's how you're
is.
supposed to do it.
And they got a movie deal too. He just did the. They got the movie on Disney as well. It's like it's a biopic of Giannis and his journey to getting to the NBA. Him and Thanasis, because they were both on track. Actually, Thanasis was the better of the two as they were growing up, but he wound up dealing with an injury, and I kind of set him back. And Giannis just took that thing to the next stratosphere, and ultimately we see where they are right now. There's I want to say there's four of the brothers that are either between the NBA and the G League right now. But yeah, man, you gotta take care of family, and that's what Giannis was doing. Really quick before we switch over and talk World Series, because you did say the World Series would be over by the time we got back on live on Sunday. But make sure you guys are following us on all our social media. RealFansRealTalk.com is the website. If you are not in the New York City area and you can't watch us on Verizon 43 from 8 to 9 p.m. on Thursday night, you can click on that website and you can watch live from anywhere you are at in the world. And again, Facebook.com, you see it up on the screen right now, Facebook.com/RealFansRealTalk, YouTube.com/For the Fans Productions, and of course, Twitter and Instagram at Real Fan Talk. So make sure you guys are tuned in. Also, make sure you support the podcast as well, the Sanchez Show podcast, as well as Real Fans Real Talk podcast. And again, for our grown and sexy crowd, y'all can still rock out with us on Thursdays and Sunday nights on the Shooting the Shit podcast that we do with our brother Sean Fontaine. So make sure you guys are subscribed to everything, because we got a whole lot of content coming for you guys. We're going to end off the year very strong and open up 2023 even stronger with a lot of content for you guys. So make sure you guys stay tuned in with that one. And with that being said, let's talk World Series, Eric. Obviously, it's not neither one of the teams that we wanted to see play in the World Series, but it is what it is. We got to still talk about it. Houston won 4-2. I will say this: as much as I don't like Houston, I do love the fact that a black manager in Dusty Baker, who I think is very well deserved, finally got his chance at holding that trophy up and being a World Series championship GM. You got to love that for him. But Eric, talk to me about the World Series, man. It was kind of short.
It was, well, I mean, it went 6. It went what I thought it would. And as you mentioned on Friday, I said it's probably going to be over. It wasn't the two teams we wanted. We were hoping for a Subway Series. But the one thing I will never do is disrespect greatness. And I think this Houston team is truly great. This is a modern day dynasty, people. They've been to the World Series 4 times in the last 6 years. They won 2 of those. They had to deal with the cheating scandal a couple years ago and bounced back from that and still made 2 World Series after that. Dusty Baker's resume is complete now. Hall of Fame manager. He had been to the World Series before. He should have won with the Giants and Barry Bonds, and that one got away from him late, but he makes it right here. And for Houston, the reason I call him a modern day dynasty, because the way free agency works and the way you lose guys, for them to still be able to do this. When you look at the first time they won a World Series compared to now, look at some of the guys that were on that team that are no longer there. George Springer, all-star player. Carlos Correa, all-star player. Garrett Cole, all-star pitcher. You lose your manager, replace him with another manager, and still find a way to continue to thrive and be there. This is truly a great team, great franchise. Kudos to Dusty Baker. To me, that was the most enjoyment I saw. Like the way the team reacted to Dusty Baker. You saw all the coaches getting around him and celebrating with him, and then hearing him on a podium talking about, we're about to party tonight. Truly deserve it. This is a guy who's been a part of Major League Baseball for 50 years, and now he had his moment. So congratulations to Houston.
Exactly. Congratulations to the Astros. Congratulations to Dusty Baker. And you mentioned the guys that are no longer on the roster, in addition to some new guys that are on the roster. And one of those new guys just so happened to be named the World Series MVP, and that was Jeremy Pena. You got to tip your hat to that young man. As a rookie, to come into a very competitive league and to not only help your team get to the World Series, but to be named MVP as a rookie. That is a very, very, very big deal, and we need to put a lot of respect on that young man's name for accomplishing that feat.
Yeah, he's the first positional player as a rookie to win MVP of the World Series. He's the second overall. The first one was a pitcher, whoever did it, but first positional player. But not only MVP of the World Series, he was MVP of the ALCS, and he also won a Gold Glove at shortstop. I think he's the first person to ever have that trifecta within a season, and he had to replace Carlos Correa, who was a fan favorite in Houston, and Carlos Correa was an all-star himself. So for Jeremy Pena to come in, like you said, and take on that responsibility, you're replacing a fan favorite, but then perform in the playoffs was amazing. And it's also a testament to Dusty Baker, because someone had asked Dusty during the ALCS, Jeremy Pena really struggled early in the season. You look back at his numbers, it was a point where he was hitting under 200. And Dusty said, I'm going to keep batting him second because I know how good this kid is. He going to perform when it matters. And guess what? When it mattered, Jeremy Pena did, man. So kudos to him. And I don't even know how your career gets any better than as a rookie doing all those things. But I guess it's only up from here, right? That's what they say.
Well, I mean, you're already at the peak, so you got to – I don't know if can you get any higher than this? Does it get any better? Well, I guess it was – he'd have to get the MVP or Triple Crown or something like that for it to be better than this. That's probably the only –
unless he has like a Derek Jeter type career where he's in the World Series damn near every year. I mean, that's the only thing that's next, because MVP of the World Series, MVP of the ALCS, and I've already won a Gold Glove. I mean, I don't know what could be next.
Yeah. What else? What else is there? While you're talking about awards, though, I do want to acknowledge my guy Aaron Judge. He was voted Player of the Year by the players. So I do want to shout out my guy. I'm sure they'll be announcing once they get ready to announce the MVP. He's going to be named MVP as well. But for now, he has been voted by his peers as the 2022 MLB Player of the Year. So I want to tip my hat to my guy on that. I know you got some good news, Eric, over in Queens. You guys re-upped on a very good young talent as well. You want to talk about the extension that the Mets gave to Diaz?
Edwin Diaz, 5 years, $102 million, well deserved. It had already been noted he was going to be the top priority of the Mets. So I'm happy that they were able to hash this out very quickly and then move on to some other big things we need to take care of, specifically Jacob deGrom. But Edwin Diaz earned this money, man. He came in, he struggled his first year and a half as a Met, but he didn't run from the criticism. He took it on the chin. He understood Met fans, New York fans demand the best from me. I got to be better. This year was a culmination of all that. Got through the struggles, got through the storm. Now I'm an all-star closer. Probably was the best closer in baseball this year. The trumpets had the city going crazy, so it was well-deserved. He truly earned this money, bro. From what he went through his first year and a half as a Met to now, he truly earned that, and I'm so happy he's back with the Mets.
And listen, Eric, one thing that we are always for on this show is these young men and women getting to the bag. He has shown and proven his worth to this Mets organization, and he was compensated for that very very handsomely. He was compensated very handsomely for his play this season, and he will be locked in with the Mets for another couple of years. My man Ryan he on it tonight. Ryan, you on it?
No. Hey, Ryan, listen, man. Ryan, we applaud you, man. We thank you. We thank you so much for taking the time to rock with us, man. I was about to ask you this question, Trip, but since you noticed it, I mean, listen, for the people who can't see the questions, Ryan asks, does Judge come back?
Hold on, because I think I got something right here for just for that question right there. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can get.
I mean, I think I know what your answer will be, but let's see what you got.
Yeah, I think I got. Do I got one? Where's all my stuff is all scattered over the place because we in construction right now, and I know I had it earlier, but I can't seem to. All right, you know what? The fans are just gonna have to do. They're gonna have to do without it because I can't find my Yankee fitted right now. But you know how the colleges do when the recruits come in and they put the hat on the team.
On signing
day. I was trying. I literally just had my Yankee fitted in my hand because I was saving it for a moment, just like this one. But to answer your question, Ryan, yes, Aaron Judge will be back with the New York Yankees next season. They're going to lock him in. They're going to do the right thing. They're going to give him his money, and he will be locked in with the Yankees for a very long time. So, Ryan, you can enjoy saying, here comes the Judge. Probably, for the rest of his career, he's going to be a Yankee. He's going to retire a Yankee. He's going to get that Mariano Rivera, Derek Jeter, Bernie Williams, Jorge Posada love from the city of New York because he will be a lifetime Yankee.
I agree. I think he comes back to the Yankees as well. He loves it there. They love him. I don't see too many options in terms of teams he can go to. I don't think the Mets are going to be in on him bidding because the Mets still got to take care of DeGrom as well as some other free agents. So I think the Mets will kind of sit that one out. I don't see Boston in the mix. Dodgers won't be in the mix because the Dodgers got a lot of stuff they got to figure out with their roster as well. The only team I could think of that could be in the mix, but I don't know if they're going to be willing to go to that price tag, would be the San Francisco Giants because he's from that area and him and Bonds have a great relationship. See, Ryan just commented as well. The Giants could be in the mix. I just don't know if they're going to be willing to go to that number because his annual salary is going to be close to $40 million a year. And historically, they've been a team that's kind of shied away from those type of numbers.
Yeah. I do know that he does have some ties out there, but ultimately the same way we talk about Brooklyn being Deontay Wilder's home away from home, this is his home away from home, and it's going to be his home. He's loved and revered here in New York, and Aaron Judge right now, he's the number one athlete in New York right now.
Slow down, son. Slow down.
Sorry, he is.
He's not the
he's number one.
Number one what?
Especially after he get named MVP.
Oh, he's gonna win MVP. He's gonna win MVP. And like I said, Giants got to be on that list. And to Ron's point, you got to watch the Giants though, because I thought it was very telling how glowingly he spoke about Barry Bonds. Him and Bonds got a relationship, like friendship type, respect and friendship type. So I wouldn't be surprised if Bonds speak highly of the Giants organization and lets them know, like, you come here, there's a lot of things you can do. But it's going to be very tough to walk away from the Yankees unless the Yankees offer is nowhere close. And again, the Giants would have to be willing to get to at least close to $40 million. He's going to want a Mike Trout type contract. So that's why I think the Giants might have to walk away from. But in terms of number one, like popularity, you mean in New York?
Yeah, I think he's just going to be the number one guy because, who else?
I think Saquon's more popular than him.
Yeah, but the thing, Saquon is very popular, but Saquon doesn't have the resume that Aaron Judge has yet.
Fair.
He has to, and again, I love Saquon. You see the hat I got on today. I love Saquon. That's my guy. I'm so happy he's been healthy and he's looking like the Saquon Barkley that the Giants drafted with the number 2 overall pick. But at the end of the day, you still got to you have to stay on the field. You have to get to the playoffs, which I think they'll do this season. You got to make a little bit of push in the playoffs. Whereas, with Aaron Judge, he's going to be an MVP in this league. Within the next couple of weeks, he'll be named MVP of the American League. The Yankees are a legitimate playoff team. They've been that for a couple of years. So I got to give the edge to Aaron Judge. Now, that could change if the Giants go on a deep playoff run this year, and it's because of Saquon Barkley and what he does on the field. He could kind of catch up, make it close. But you still, at the end of the day, you have to have a better resume than Aaron Judge. And right now, I don't think there's any athlete playing on a New York franchise, that has the resume that he has and has played in New York. Because obviously we know Kevin Durant has 3 championships,
right?
But in New York, he doesn't have the resume that Aaron Judge has.
No, that's a fact. Because I was gonna say, in terms of popularity, I think Kevin Durant is above him. But in terms of New York, like the true New York fan base, Kevin Durant isn't above him because Kevin Durant just hasn't done enough. He hasn't been in New York long enough. But I do think Saquon, in terms of popularity, is there because of the profile he came into the league with. And then because a lot, remember, you got to remember, a lot of these kids don't watch full games. They watch the highlights. So when they see all the things that Saquon can do, it's always that ooh and ah factor with Saquon and how graceful he is and how powerful he can be on the field. For us, I agree. I think Judge is the guy because we watch all these sports and we know. But for the kids and the younger generation, I think it's Saquon, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, so listen, just be on the lookout for that MVP celebration because I will have all of my Yankee fitteds on deck for the announcement of the official announcement of Aaron Judge as the American League MVP. And he's accomplished a lot of great things this season, passing Roger Maris. And I will, just to go back to the relationship with Barry, though, I will, one of the things that you and I both really loved and respected about Aaron Judge was his acknowledgement of Barry Bonds as the home run king. So that I will say in regards to their relationship, and we both love that he said that, especially for someone that could was really breaking the record officially. I mean, obviously he broke the American League, but not the all time. And the guys that are ahead of him on this list. And again, I don't even count my man Barry in that. Some people do. I don't count him in that because he ain't never had no positive tests. But the other guys that are ahead of him on the home run list in single season have tested positive. The Mark McGuire's, the Sammy Sosa's, those guys do have those positive tests. With Barry, I still stake my claim that he ain't had no positive tests, so I ain't gonna put that on him. But to give him that respect, because when you look at how he's perceived by many people that don't give him that respect or want to put an asterisk by his name and by his home run record, for Aaron Judge to acknowledge that is a level of respect, for his peers and the guys that came ahead of him. So, you got to love that.
I agree.
So with that being said, though, what else we got? We got one more quick thing left. Well, two things really quick left on the rundown. I was hurt this week. Alabama lost in overtime on a 2-point conversion. Had me sick. Pretty much blew their chances of making it to the playoffs this year and competing for a national championship. They'll get a bowl game, of course, but they won't be able to compete for the national championship unless there's like a total collapse in the top 10 within the next couple of weeks.
Can they still win the SEC?
I believe they can win the SEC championship game. I think they'll play an SEC championship game still. They still have a chance at that, but I don't think it will be enough to push them into the top 4, unless several teams just fall off the face of the earth basically over the next couple of weeks.
That might be their path. I'm not looking at it right now, but that might be their path because Clemson lost yesterday, who was the top 4 team. And they lost to an unranked team, so that's gonna hurt their rankings drastically. But Ohio State and Michigan still have to play each other, so one of them is gonna knock the other one off. So there might be a path. We got to see what the new rankings look like on Monday, though. But that might be Alabama's only path.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So I'm very disappointed in them this week. I don't know what happened with the defense because Bryce Young did everything he possibly could in that game to continue driving them down the field and putting them in position to win that game. And not just getting there and then coming up short, getting there and scoring touchdowns. The defense did not help Alabama at all. So they've got some work that they need to do. I know Nick Saban is going to be barking on them for a very long time to get them back in order. But there's one team that is undefeated right now.
And don't forget, I'm sorry, because Tennessee lost yesterday too. So there's 2
yes, that's right. But they lost to the number 3 team. So I don't think they'll probably still be in the top 4 when the rankings come out. I can't even see them going past 4 just because they lost to the number 3 seed. So usually how it works is when you're undefeated and you lose to a team ranked that high, usually you won't get bumped out of the top 4, just because the other teams all have losses. So I think they'll still be in the top 4. So they'd have to lose again. So and they'd have to lose to an unranked team or a team that's maybe like in the back 15 to 20 25.
That's what I was saying. I got to double check on that SEC because Tennessee is SEC as is Alabama, but both of them losing to ranked teams. Like I think Alabama was 6 coming into this game, so there's got to be some sort of dip. But they lost to a top 10 team on the road, so
yes.
I don't think it'll be a drastic dip. And then when you look at the way the rest of the top 4 shaped out, Tennessee losing, Clemson losing, I think there could be a path. I got to double check how the SEC plays out for them Because if they can still run the table and win the SEC, I
Yeah,
could
they
see
may
them
have a
still getting in
chance.
as a number 4. I could see them
Yeah,
still
because
getting in as a number 4.
here's the thing. I don't think they fall out of the top 10 with this loss because, again, it was on the road against a ranked opponent and a very close game. So I don't think they fall out of the top 10 just based off of strength of schedule. But again, it's still going to take some work for them to get to back to be in the midst of the playoffs.
Right.
So with that being said, though, now we got to talk about an undefeated team in college football. We got to put a lot of respect on their names. Just because my main man and your main man Deion Sanders is down there coaching up a storm, turning HBCUs upside down and shining a light on these gentlemen that should be there, should have been there, but hasn't been there. But he's shining a very bright light on these young men over at Jackson State. And obviously, I know they're in the SWAC conference. My man Deion, they got to watch his videos about the SWAC conference. But
SWAC?
Who is SWAC exactly? But they are at 9-0 right now on the season, undefeated, and they are knocking on the doors, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. They are knocking on the doors, and they're about to kick them doors down really soon with the help of Deion Sanders, who is a great leader of men and a great coach on the field.
Well, yeah, as we talked about it Friday, first and foremost, whenever the day comes that Jay-Z owns an NFL franchise, whether it's with this Commanders group that he's trying to put together with Jeff Bezos or any other team, organization, we would like Deion Sanders to be the coach, because Tripp and I have already put in our applications to be the first fans of that organization, with Jay-Z as the owner and Deion as the head coach. But on the college circuit, Deion Sanders is applying a lot of pressure. You know what I'm saying? And the communities we come from, Tripp, we know what that means. He going to put pressure on y'all because one of you Power 5 schools is going to have to play Jackson State soon. You're going to have to put them on your schedule. You're going to have to bring them into your stadium because you know the type of tickets it will sell. You know the type of attention it will bring. And ultimately, that's the biggest win for Deion. If he can take an HBCU like Jackson State and get them in a marquee stadium for a marquee matchup on national television, then he has completed his goal there and he's won. He will be able to prove to everyone that we have enough talent here at the HBCUs to compete with the Power 5s. And like he's always said, we should get just as many invites to the combine. We should have just as many scouts watching our boys play as well, because we have equal talent. So Deion is getting closer and closer to accomplishing that goal.
Absolutely, absolutely. One last question sent to me on Facebook earlier today in regards to the refs, Eric. And this is, you can really talk about the refs in all sports across the board. They're, I mean, we're always talking about, oh man, the ref got that call wrong, the ref got this call wrong. Is there ever going to be a time, one, where there's no ref, and two, what can be done to improve on the refs that we feel like aren't good refs right now?
In terms of no refs ever, I don't think we'll ever get to that point, because all leagues have said they still want to keep that human element, no matter how good or bad it is, as part of the game. So to go completely, computerized where everything is called from a booth, that'll be a little tough. And that slows down the game a little bit, because we see what the replays do to the game now. In order to improve the refs, though, I've always felt one of the key areas that people don't really talk about is the age difference. You got guys who are most times in their 50s and 60s trying to cover a game that is played by guys that are in their 20s and 30s. And the athleticism ain't the same and the energy ain't the same. And guys got to get up and down the field of court. And you're asking somebody to do something that's kind of out of their physical limitations. Why not start training some of these guys who maybe were college athletes but never made it to the pros? Why not start training them to be officials? Because physically they'll be able to keep up with the game. The eye is sharper, the body's better, and maybe we'll get a sharper version of officials and referees.
Yeah, I actually love that. I don't even have to say nothing else, because I actually love what you said right there, Eric. I think that's a great idea. Start off younger and training these refs. And I do think one thing I will add to that is, I don't know what kind of training they have yearly, but I would maybe try to tweak whatever training that they have, maybe add on to some things just to kind of, because we're again, how many Sundays have you been watching football or Thursday night watching an NBA game and you're like, oh my goodness, the ref has blown another call after another call. That was a BS call. That was, you know what I mean? How many times have we all sat and said this about the refs? So I do think there's something that does need to be done now, because obviously we can't just swap out all of the refs and then bring in young kids right now. That's a process
Right.
that we'd have to, you know what I mean? But for now, we can kind of add some more training, or just different things to kind of help with the refs out, because a lot of times it's just like, oh my goodness, you guys are horrible.
Yeah, and shout
So
out to Ryan, because Ryan's 1000% correct. It's a very tough job, and I would never tell an official, you're terrible at it, because it's something that I've never done. So it's a tough job to be out there and be mindful and have the awareness of everything that's going on the court or on the field. But I do think that we sometimes forget, like we talk all the time about how the games have gotten bigger, stronger, faster, the players, right? But the officials aren't progressing in that same rate either. And I know in the NBA it's a little different. You start off smaller, high school, then work your way to college, then got to work your way into the NBA. But a lot of times you're still talking about somebody who might be in their 40s or 50s by the time they get there, and you're asking them to run up and down the court with a 20-year-old and be able to call every call correctly and be on top of everything that's going on. I think it's a lot to ask of someone who physically can't keep up with the players.
yeah, and something Ryan said too in the comments, which is we need to take into account as well. It's hard for guys to be officials, because you do have to take a lot of backlash from not only players but from fans, from family members, from friends. So there's a lot that goes into to that.
Everyone thinks they could do the job, but they can't.
Exactly. But listen, guys. With that being said, because we definitely on overtime. Eric, we've been working hard these past couple of weeks, man.
Yeah,
We got to
man.
get back. We got to get back in game shape. Do what Leonard Fournette was supposed to be doing. But make sure you guys continue to follow us on all our social media. Subscribe to that Sanchez Show. Subscribe to Real Fans Real Talk. With that being said, for myself, Trip Young, and my brother, legend in 2 games, Eric Sanchez, we up out of here.
Peace.
Peace. Thank you guys for tuning in.